Welcome. I'm going to call to order the Zionsville Board of Parks and Recreation regular monthly meeting for March. I'll take roll call. Nada Shapaw.
Here.
Kimberly Lane.
Here.
Matt Milburn.
Here.
Ken Perkins.
Here.
Chad Dilley.
Here.
Dan Layton.
Here.
Doug Tischbein is here. So I need approval, since we're all here, approval of the February 11th, 2026 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review? Are there any questions, or do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second. Minutes from last month are approved. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the February 23rd.
Sorry, Doug, you just want to take a vote on it after you've had your second. You don't have to do a roll call vote, but you could just call for a vote to approve the minutes.
Okay, do I have a vote? Yay, nay?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain because I wasn't here last meeting.
Good, John. Now moving on to the executive session memorandums. Anybody had a chance to review that? Any questions? Can I ask for approval? I have a first.
Second.
I have a second. Motion passes.
All those.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Any public presentations or comments this evening? Okay, come on up. Come on up to the podium. Just state your name and.
My name is Janet Stutzman. I live at 210 South 2nd Street here in Zionsville. And I didn't attend your February meeting, but I viewed the video. And I believe the board voted to act outside the law by holding an executive session, and I quote, to determine how we want to shore up the shelter reservation policy, special events, and special use permits as a board, and to vote on it at the next meeting. The open door law states that no voting is to take place behind closed doors, which you're okay there, but it also limits the issues that can be discussed. And they're supposed to be only, those that are discussed in executive session are supposed to include negotiations, litigation, real estate transactions, and confidential personnel matters. So determining how our parks can be used should be done with an open door. The discussion about concerning factors should occur with an open door. Two political events were referred to as the impetus for that discussion. What were those events, and did they lead to the damage to the parks?
John, do you want to?
You can comment if you want, but you don't have to answer any questions if you don't want to.
We appreciate it.
I can tell you that the executive session was held in accordance with the open door.
That's what I thought. We had our attorney approval on handling that and managing through that executive session. And I can promise you that there were no votes taken place during that executive session.
I understand that, but it's my understanding that discussion of issues other than those that I listed are also prohibited in executive session.
There are actually several reasons you can hold an executive session. The legislature actually just amended the open door law last year to have communications with an attorney that are subject to the attorney-client privilege. So I was giving them legal advice, and it was held for that reason.
Okay, so any discussion in those policies will be taking place before a vote in public?
All votes will be held in public.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, John. Staff reports, Jared?
Thank you, Doug. Good evening, Park Board. Just to highlight a couple of items through the superintendent report for the month of February. The maintenance team created 199 new work orders and completed 208. Again, catching up on some work orders not met in previous months. 175 of those work orders were preventative and 24 were reactive. Our natural resource team led a group of 40 lacrosse club volunteers for a weed wrangle on February 17th at Elm Street Green. The lacrosse team and other volunteers cleared honeysuckle from within Elm Street Green and continued towards Lions Park along the Eagle Creek corridor. The Mulberry Fields concession restrooms were opened at the beginning of March, and a variance was submitted to the state to approve the adult accessibility changing table, which that variance was approved last week. I met with DNR, the Army Corps, IDEM, EPA to discuss the forthcoming DNR in swamp program that will work to restore 2/3 of a mile of Eagle Creek within the Carpenter Nature Preserve. That project is moving along through its design, and this was the permitting regulatory meeting prior to pre-construction and construction. From our Big Four rail trail counter, we had 8,712 counts in the month of February. 1,269 of those were cyclists and 7,443 were pedestrians. We also received the 2026 municipal grant from the Boone County Solid Waste Division. That grant allowed us to purchase trash cans and dog waste stations, which we will place in Carpenter Nature Preserve and other parks. The value of that grant was $9,982.52. And finally, this next Monday, March 16th, there will be a road closure on Starkey Avenue near the Big Four pedestrian bridge over the road. We will be conducting slope remediation work on that slope underneath the bridge that has began to degrade into the road. So we have Wharf Excavating that will be working on that project for us. The road will close, as I mentioned, Monday, March 16th from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. The project is anticipated for 2 days, but the road will reopen each evening. That is all from the superintendent report. Happy to move over to the Director of Recreation report as Mindy is in West Virginia at the NRPA Revenue School. So in the month of February, we had 1,515 walk-ins to our nature center, 270 participants in private programming. The vast majority of those were participants in the Nature Connections program. That is our 3rd grade program that is extended to several elementaries. This month's classroom activities were at Pleasant View, Boone Meadow, and Trailside. We also had 477 participants in public programs in the month of February. And as of March 2nd, summer camp registration has opened. We have 21 camps that will be offering the community this year. So some of those have begun to fill up, but there are spots still available for summer camps near you. And that is all from the staff reports. Happy to answer any questions.
I've noticed on social media that there's a lot of advertising for the parks events and seminars and getting the younger groups in the community involved. So I'm really glad to see that because it looks like you're trying to cover quite a bit with that. Any other questions for Jared or Mindy?
Mindy's proxy.
Jared, do you have a sense for, are we happy with the turnout in general to our events and programs? Is it something we need to work on? Like, I don't have much to compare it to. I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so our nature center walk-ins are pretty consistent. Our nature center is free, but it's nice to see that it's utilized so heavily throughout the entire year. We are happy with our public program presentation. The numbers so far have been great. We've had far less cancellations this first quarter than last quarter of 2025. It's always difficult to get people out into the elements, but we're doing better and better with our toddler treks and peeps programs, which gets them out there at a younger age. And we learned that it teaches adults it's okay to be outside when the weather's a little poor. Thank you for asking.
Anything else? Going to move on to new business. I think we have a couple of pretty exciting things to talk about in new business. Jared, you want to kick us off?
Yes, I will. All right. So resolution 2026-06 is the accepting a transfer of real property. So a little context to this request. The Friends of Boone County Trails organized in the late 2000s, and they were a catalyst for securing rail corridors across Boone County. Historically, this 501c3 has advocated for trails in Boone County and held several parcels from funding they received from Governor Mitch Daniels as a part of one of his initiatives for getting Hoosiers outdoors onto trails. This group held many of those parcels as we applied for our next level trails grant program back in the 2020-2021 era. And a large portion of our grant match was actually from their donation of those parcels to us at that time. So since those early years and that activity around Next Level, the group has been kind of in a holding pattern, not very active. So they are exploring consolidating into another trail advocacy group or dissolving altogether. With that, they do hold several parcels still for Zionsville for two of our trails. One of them is the final two parcels of our active Big Four Rail Trail that we have today. And the other is 9 parcels related to our Midland Trace Trail, which we have not yet constructed. So on the screen is a list of these parcels, and within the packet and in the resolution are also a map delineating these. So this white line just north of 32 are the segments of the Midland Trace that the Friends Group was able to acquire through their advocacy. So there's Carpenter Nature Preserve in green just as a reference point. This would be our regional trail east-west in Union Township. It's already activated across Hamilton County, going from Westfield all the way to Noblesville. The ambitions for Boone County would be to have this trail enter at Michigan or prior to Michigan and then continue over to Lebanon where it would tie into the Big Four Rail Trail, again, creating loops for pedestrian and cycling access across our county and region. And the other 2 parcels listed were just those final 2 segments, as I mentioned, of the Big Four Rail Trail. We've placed our trail on them. There was no issue with the Friends Group, but obviously ownership, now that they're dissolving, we'd like to have those segments. So those 2 segments butt up against the Spring Knoll and Preserve of Spring Knoll areas of our rail trail. So with your consideration this evening, it would be to accept these 11 parcels, and John Overlander and I will go through the process of transferring those and having them recorded with the county.
I just want to make a comment. I think this is amazing. As we watch all of the development occurring in Zionsville, and there's a lot of concern from the community around the green space, the trees, the habitat, and to see them donated not just to the community, but in a way that's meaningful to our park system and allows us to extend further into Union Township where we have no parks yet. It's very exciting. And so I love to see this. I'd love to see more of this. And I think this is an absolutely amazing gift to our community. So.
Great, thank you.
The 2 parcels that are on, I think it was Green Thread, we already have trail on there.
The trail sits there today,
sits there today.
but we
We're
just
just
aren't the
taking-
legal owners of
Okay.
those. Yep.
And then the parcels in Midland Trace, so all of the non-white across that line are additional parcels or easements that we'd have to gather.
Potentially. So I believe the majority of the corridor was grabbed during this exercise, but if corridors are not retained, they divert back to the adjoining property owners. So this is a significant head start on the Midland Trace trail, but there will be acquisition or partnerships with development in the future to make the rest of it happen.
Haven't been that far north in a while.
Yeah, well,
I get to 32 and then that.
and some of the rail corridor is very obvious. Other sections have been transformed into ag. So it's.
Will this connect through Carpenter then? Is that the plan?
That is the long range goal, is to get this to Carpenter and hopefully following an Eagle Creek Trail down to the village would be the dream.
There's no operational impact to you guys. I mean, I
No.
don't see a downside.
Yeah.
I'm not missing anything. am I?
If there was a request to maintain these, it's a significantly small section of land. We could clear brush if we needed to.
Make a motion to approve.
Hey, I wanted to do that. I was excited. Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, all those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Moving through the new business, Resolution 2026-07 is approving amendments to the Lincoln Park Refresh PPA. So as you recall, this body last year entered into a public-private agreement with Envoy Inc. for the Lincoln Park Refresh BOT model. Since then, we have refined the scoping phase of this, and I'm happy to say that we have a better outcome even than we started with. So through Doug's incredible work and just negotiations on the project, we were able to get to a price point that is again within our budget. And actually, if we don't utilize the contingency, would be below what was approved previously by this board. But I'll just mention some of the items that were revised in those negotiations to get us to this new price point. So within the landscape package, the original spec soil was substituted for a cost-effective suitable soil alternative. They suggested utilizing and repurposing components of the irrigation system that are still operational, and delineating the central lawn from the beds was going to be a concrete curb. They have value engineered a slip form opportunity for significant cost savings on that same concrete curb. Moving over to the fountain, the proposed fountain is a simplified pre-manufactured fountain with base and interior bubblers. For unit pavers, they removed the spec for asphalt and concrete, and instead we'll have a 9-inch base layer of stone with a concealed aluminum edge. And the gazebo is as specified. We were able to keep in the metal gazebo as in the renderings. Electrical, they now will include the lighting package for that. So there will be those bistro lights hanging from poles across the center walk, and there'll be direct bury of the wiring. Construction is anticipated to start as early as April 7th and conclude October of this year. So from the guaranteed maximum price GMP report, they are proposing a project cost of $979,792.52. That is with $25,762.88 of contingency. So if that contingency is not utilized, that total would be $954,029.64, which is below the $960 that was approved in the draft form of this project.
This is excellent.
Yeah, I want to just pause and give Doug kudos. So last year that this came up and he just called timeout. So we need to approach it just a little bit differently. So I think this is a reflection of Doug's expertise and leadership, and appreciate your diligence on that, Doug.
Yeah, this is somewhere like $300,000 below what our lowest bid was, right? Which was way out of our budget. So, I mean, we're talking significant savings here, hundreds of thousands. So awesome.
Yeah, and Jared, thank you for being there and supporting some tough decisions and negotiations that we had to get through, so.
I think it's interesting too. I mean, Envoy is a solid company. They do a lot of work around so this is not a non-credible vendor that we're working with. This is a very credible construction company. So it's really good work to get a credible vendor to give you that price.
So I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Exciting.
All right, moving right through the agenda to Resolution 2026-08 Lincoln Park Gazebo Naming Rights Solicitation. So this is just a resolution capturing the direction of the board at the last meeting. So this would allow for naming rights deal to be agreement to be finalized and brought before this board. The naming rights for a 25-year period would be for $100,000, and that pays for the gazebo essentially for future replacement. And we will solicit these opportunities for naming rights through August 1st. So after that period, any received proposals will bring before this board.
Is there a possibility that you would have co-sponsors?
We could explore that.
And we don't want to be too tacky, but I mean, you know, the more, the better, in my opinion. Is there a naming rights option maybe for the fountain?
The fountain is already a grandfathered in donation from a family.
Okay. Did we end up deciding to plant dahlias in the flower beds?
Not in the flower beds, but the raised flower boxes we're planning for Oak Street.
Okay.
Yep, we are working on a partnership with the cultural district for that.
Okay, so then there's a partnership established for that too. Just trying to squeeze every dollar, you know.
I appreciate it.
Any other questions on naming rights? I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
On to more good news in the agenda. So last month, the department was approached by an anonymous donor with a proposal to implement an addition of public art into our park system. So following our public art policy, we furnished an oversight committee to review the proposal. So that oversight committee was comprised of 2 park board members, 2 cultural district members, 2 local artists. We also had a couple of other members in the room from Main Street, Zionsville, the Village Resident Association, and the Parks Foundation. So the committee reviewed the proposal that is before you. We can actually go through that now. So the proposal is for a bronze statue of Abraham Lincoln to be within Lincoln Park. The donor wishes to remain anonymous at this time, and they have selected Ryan Feeney of Indie Art Forge as the artist for this installation. So the donor has at this point pledged to cover costs associated with the entire installation, which these are not cheap. That project cost would include the artist's design and sculpting of it, the final proofing, the mold making and casting, the bronze pour and finishing, the patina and sealant, engineering and structural support for the base, on-site installation supervision, transportation and rigging, and the insurance during fabrication and transport. So a designated portion of those raised funds associated with this would be towards the long-term care of the bronze conservation, scheduled waxing and patina review, structural inspections and surface cleaning as needed. So this isn't the exact placement, obviously, but we are anticipating the location to approximately be around the central fountain near Oak Street. It would be in a location that is easily visible to both traffic and pedestrians entering the park and ADA accessible viewing. So the tentative timetable upon approval would be 1 to 2 months for final design approval, 2 to 4 months for sculpting and finalization of the cast. Phase 3 would be the mold making and bronze casting. Phase 4, the patina and finishing, which takes a month. Phase 5 would be preparation of the concrete footer that would house the installation. And then the final phase, taking us right to about a year, would be delivery and installation. So Parks and Recreation maintenance team will pour and reinforce the concrete pad as engineered within the specs. Anchor bolts will be embedded and aligned to the artist's specifications. Statue will be secured using internal structure mounting rods. Final leveling and seal inspection will occur on site with the artist on site to help supervise that process. These are some initial draft concepts. The oversight committee did request that the shawl be removed. And then the final orientation of his hand maybe to look more like he's speaking, which will allow a little bit more interactiveness with the installation. So this is kind of the scale of some of the other works that Ryan has completed around the metropolitan area. He has expertise in this type of installation. His notable commissions to date were with the Indianapolis Colts, Marion County Sheriff's Department, the Indianapolis 9/11 Foundation, Indiana State Capitol, Indiana University, NBA Hall of Fame, City of Carmel Arts District, City of Valparaiso, and Franciscan Health Network. So fortunately, bronze is very durable. We have a bell over in Philadelphia to be a testament to that. So routine maintenance annually is just gentle cleaning using non-ionic soaps and waters, just truly keeping it free of debris. There are applications of museum grade paste and waxes and buffing to maintain the protective barrier. Every 3 to 5 years, we can review the patina. And again, as this ages, it's just going to get more depth and character as well. Long-term durability, bronze statues can last 100 years plus, especially if properly cared for. So day one, we would have a standard operating procedure for the care of this installation. And Ryan would remain available for long-term consultation as needed. So the proposal strengthens Zionsville's historic narrative in the village, enhances Lincoln Park's revitalization, and serves as a destination and gathering landmark for generations to come. And that is kind of all for the proposal. So the other item that the Oversight Committee wanted their recommendation on contingent was the exact placement of the structure and approval of the final proving. So that'll come as Ryan would go through the process and provide a final proof for approval prior to casting. So the meeting was held on March 4th at 3 p.m. here in Town Hall with the committee, and unanimously, the committee made a favorable recommendation to the park board to accept this donation contingent on those two items, the final proofing and final location.
I'll just say kudos to you, Jared and Megan. There was a lot of thought put into being representative of and historically accurate of when he was here, what he would have been wearing, what his hair would have looked like at the time when he was talking, what his posture would have been like. And, you know, as we refresh Lincoln Park and modernize it, I think it's also great to have such a traditional element to it that is historically accurate and beautiful. So kudos to you and your team, and I'm excited to see it make Zionsville more of a destination.
Okay, two questions. One just kind of curiosity. The other one's maybe a little bit more serious. Curiosity one, is it to scale of his height?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The second one is, let's think through like vandalism and things like that. I just don't know about bronze material and stuff like that. If it's vandalized, is there like a significant recovery process, or is that something you can do on site?
I believe the museum waxing does provide some level of protection there.
Does it?
But
Okay.
we would certainly consult with Ryan in that situation. There was the conversation of potential security and surveillance. We will place this in a site with visible sight lines, so you know
Good.
it's always going to kind of be
Good.
exposed.
Yeah, whoever the donor is, it looks like they want to remain anonymous. I mean, thank you. Right, this is really cool. This is a nice piece. So I make a motion to approve.
And he did it in honor of his wife, so even sweeter.
I have a question on that real quick. Is there going to be a commemorative plaque or any sort of,
So that would
in
be,
honor of my wife? Or
yeah.
or any other
So
conditions that the donor put on this?
there would likely be a plaque with an inscription, as well as we were going to ask if he would allow a educational opportunity with the plaque nearby, talking about the inauguration further, or having a quote from Lincoln. So all that would be captured in the agreement that would be signed.
I'll second.
I have a couple of questions before we second. I think I mentioned to you before, it'd be kind of cool to have him looking at the American flag if the artist could do that for us. And then secondly, is there a set aside on the donation for any ongoing maintenance dollars that are going to be used for the waxing and those types? Do you guys typically do that, or?
Yeah, as we finalized the cost both with the artist and the footer, we would include the line for that to have at least initial supplies for that.
Any other questions? I think it's fantastic that that's taken place. So I'll entertain a first motion.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. That's exciting.
All right, thank you all. Moving to the last item of new business, Resolution 2026-09, revising and restating the park rules. So following last month's meeting and the executive session, we did incorporate some language into the rules that were within the packet. So I can read that to the community now. It would be Rule 8 within the packet of the rules, Section B. It is strictly prohibited for any person with any park to sell, advertise, or promote publicly any services, good, or materials, including commercial products, except in accordance with the town's special event permit and in compliance with all applicable local and state laws and board policies. All vendors authorized to operate on park property under a town special event permit shall procure and maintain in full force and effect during the event, with an insurer licensed to do business in the state of Indiana, a commercial general liability policy with coverage of not less than $1 million per occurrence, and shall name the board and the town of Zionsville as additional insured parties. Vendor shall furnish a certificate of insurance to the town and board not less than 7 days before the special event.
Open up the floor for any discussion.
I will just reiterate what I've shared earlier is that given our fiscal outlook in the next not too distant future, I want to make sure that we are not inadvertently alienating our local business people by making it more difficult for them to come and take part in community events and be in a presence in our parks. I think that there will come a time likely that we will need to reach out to local businesses for sponsorships of camps, of other, programs and whatnot that we need to have happen and want to continue to see happen, that our budgets will no longer support without outside help. So I want to be very cognizant of not making it any more difficult for those local businesses. And we are very lucky in this community to have local businesses that give so much back across the board to our community endeavors, just everywhere. So that's my caveat to adding this.
I think from my perspective, I just fundamentally don't find the parks a place to transact commerce. And so whether it's a special event or not a special event, my belief is that there should be no transaction of commerce, period, other than our concession stand, which Jared, how much do we pay for our concession stand?
$994,000.
Other than commerce transacted inside of our $1 million concession stand. So that's my bias with this. I would change it to where there's strictly prohibitive any person within any park to sell, advertise, or promote public, any services, good or material, including commercial products, period. And not even allow anything inside of the town special events. Has nothing to do with not allowing special events. It has everything to do with what inside of that special event, not allowing transaction of goods and services. I just find the parks a place to come enjoy, not a vending fair.
We currently sharing any revenues from any commerce that takes place in our parks?
Only with vendors associated with Parks Department special events at this time. But we do have a 10% recovery for those vendors when they sell goods.
And your new fiscal policy, sustainability policy that we approved this year, how much in that policy is associated with revenues that we gather from parks events? Will that be affected?
Specifically with parks events, that is a significant portion of that strategy for multiple revenue streams. Absolutely.
And besides Mulberry, if we look at the overall inventory of parks assets, what other sites would this affect?
So just referencing last summer, we had two nonprofit events out at Lincoln Park. One was the concert series that's been going on for over 25 years, where they had Kona Ice on site for purchase. The other was the VRA, forget the names, but they would close 2nd Street on a Monday or Tuesday and allow the VRA to gather and utilize those food trucks. So there are examples throughout our park system where these types of commercial activities are occurring as a part of the special event process.
So if it's on the street, that's not inside of our park, I think that's different. We can't govern what's on the street. So that's not our property, right?
Correct. But the special event was also in the park. So the commerce, though, to your point, was
Right, it's on the
2nd
street, right? It's no different than the farmer's market or something like that. You shut it down with that intentionality. When it comes to Kona Ice, my guess is probably not a Zionsville business, and you got Dairy Queen or the Scoop right around the corner. So I'm gonna go counterpoint on this, right? Everybody's gonna have a different belief on this, and I respect that. And it's part of what it makes America beautiful, is that we can all have different perspectives and represent society with us. But that's my belief on it.
To his point, when we had, like, for example, I'm thinking of the Eclipse in the Park, I'm trying to think of the vendors that were there. Greeks was there, that's right there. Were the food trucks, are they mostly coming in, are they mostly Zionsville businesses? Are they mostly coming in from Carmel or wherever else?
Certainly a decent percentage of those are Zionsville businesses, but we do expend that net. You know, Chick-fil-A is over in Whitestown. It's not technically in Zionsville. They're a regular vendor for us. But we put out the call to those vendors that do show up, you know, and participate and are experienced in events.
And then to also to Chad's point, like if we wanted to say no commerce or food trucks at all, they would still show up on this. They could, we don't have control of that around Lincoln Park or do we?
Correct. And that's kind of the outlier where we don't have a parking lot. That's about the only exception. Every other one, the parking lot where they might set up would be on park property.
And the other thought I had is in terms of the commerce or the with the concessions, is it possible for us to charge per food truck or to participate in some of the revenue to offset some of the cost of the concession?
Yeah, so certainly when it's our events, we do receive a percentage of sales for the day from any of our vendors, but we don't extend that to the full town special event policy as it pertains to any event on park property. So that would be a change that we could explore.
Any further discussion? And we'll move to a vote. So do we have a motion?
Sorry, I'm just gonna interject. If anybody wants to propose any amendments, you could just
Yeah,
state what
that's what I
the
was
proposed
gonna-
amendment would be,
yeah.
and then you could vote on any proposed amendments separately. If the amendment is approved, then you could vote on the resolution to approve the restated rules as amended. So however the board wants to take it.
Say that one more time. I didn't hear.
So if anybody wants to, you know, there is the version that's in the packet that Jared read. If anybody wants to make, you know, Chad had express his point of view on commercial sales. So if he wanted to propose an amendment, not saying he has to, but if anybody else, if he or anybody else wants to, you could move to amend the rules and state how you would amend it, and then you would take a vote on that, if it could get a second.
Yeah, I also have some further questions here. So in terms of like temporary structures, I don't see anything here prohibiting temporary structures or any language about temporary structures in here.
That would be within the existing park rules, but there is no exception necessarily for tents stated in this clause.
Tents, stages, anything like that.
Correct.
So that's already banned within park rules? Tents or stages are banned within park rules, or they're not?
Structures and items like that are not permitted with the existing rules.
It's
Okay,
under number 6. So it's
Okay.
number 6 states, no person shall maintain, construct, assemble, or store any building, treehouse, structure, or personality on park property. And that's been in there as long as I've been here. So
got
at least
it.
a couple of years.
So that covers stages.
Any temporary structure.
I think it could be construed. I mean, we could clarify if you know,
Has
want to clarify.
other iterations of this document delineated that.
You
And I
could
am
clar-
not
I mean,
in
if
favor.
if the board chooses to clarify,
Yeah.
to include that, you can, just to make certain.
So asking if 6 was in here before tonight?
6 was in here before tonight, but other iterations of this had a call out specifically about stages or not.
The legal question is a stage a structure? John?
Well, this is really broadly defined. I mean, so, or personality, I mean, that's it's very broad with the way it's written right now. So but if the board would like to, I mean, clarity is usually better. So if the board wants to clarify, just to make these easier to interpret, you can do that. But, you know, what's already existing under 6 is very broad.
I think in that same vein, we should make a determination on tents and whether that's limited to a certain size, traditionally 10 by 10 or anything like that.
I believe those are used for athletic events. Is that right?
So we'd like some clarity on that.
Have we ever given any thought to having a designated rental area within our parks for certain structures to be used for certain events?
We could delineate that based on feedback from public safety and other factors, identifying those sites for each of our parks.
We haven't explored that yet. We have not explored that yet.
Not fully.
Because I think I heard that in one of the events that happened last year, that they had preferred at Mulberry to be towards the west end of the park for public safety reasons. And I think if we could designate that as a rental space, it kind of removes what could be a very active site away from the family-oriented activities at that particular park. Pickleball and splash pads and the roundabout. So maybe that's an option that could be explored. The other thing is, we haven't gotten the insurance yet, but I think the insurance should absolutely be included in the policy and a requirement just for protections. And then the other thing, I think there should be, and I think you mentioned it already, but there should be a revenue share, and we should be gaining at least 10% of revenues for any vendors that are selling on our property. And I've reached out to some companions that I've done business with in the past, and those kind of mirror what's being done in other counties and towns. So we wouldn't be alone in any of those.
Jared, do you know what Carmel, Westfield, Noblesville, Whitestown even are doing, their Parks and Rec are doing with these kind of ideas?
Each entity kind of has their own process. Carmel certainly has a process. They define what a special event is, over 100 people. And then they have a special event, they call them community events, oversight committee that reviews those proposals, probably very similar to the administrative process that's held here in Zionsville. Fishers has a tiered system depending on the size of the event. So many of our neighbors have their policies as well. And the town has had its policy for many years as well.
I spoke to Hamilton County today, and that's kind of what I was referring to as 10% designated rental areas and facilities, and they do require the COIs.
Yeah, the COIs I have no issue with at all.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
So I'm going to propose 2 amendments, and we can do them separately because we'll probably need to make a vote. So I make a motion to amend 8D, B as in boy, 8, to read, it is strictly prohibited for any person within any park to sell, advertise, or promote publicly any services, good or materials, period, and strike everything out there. So that is my amendment, is to update 8 to that. And eliminate whether it's involved with a special event permit or not, and just make it strictly prohibited to transact commerce.
I would second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No, I
Aye.
Aye.
don't know what the count was.
And I didn't hear you.
I was on the nay.
Thank you.
All right, I make a motion to amend 8 to add a 10% revenue share on any special event vendor that meets all the requirements, that they're to share 10% off the top.
I would add to that any vendor is required to produce $1 million in general liability insurance.
Okay, so we'll clarify the motion. The motion on 8 is to add 10% off the top revenue and $1 million
I
of
believe the $1 million is already in
$1
there.
million already in there. Okay, so 10% off the top.
And if you want to look that
Yep.
over again, just so you're comfortable with the wording.
Yeah, which number are you referring to, John?
It's number 8.
It says not less than $1 million per occurrence. It already
Right.
says that in there.
For each vendor, let me see right here.
And question, Anna, I guess you would be the person that knows. most of these vendors, I'm guessing 99% of them have insurance, right? Like Greeks is gonna have insurance and Kona or not Kona, but snow cones are gonna have, right?
Yeah, I mean, they should, right? Yeah.
If they don't, they can purchase a policy just for that event too.
And I did reach out to our insurance provider just to get a feel for what the cost is to list us as additional insureds, and it's more or less negligible. The cost associated with that specific certificate, not the event policy per se.
So to be clear on the motion, it's to amend B8, B as in boy, 8, to add 10% of revenue share.
I kind of like that. I like that idea, especially having spent the $1 million on a concession stand to help offset that. So I guess I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to amend 8 to include 10% revenue share off the top. And do I need to include, and the insurance is already included?
Yeah, language on the insurance is good. So how will we, like, how does that work today? Like, we ask them for receipts, or how do you determine the 10%
We would have them pull an end of day report for their sales, and we would,
for each vendor?
yes, that would be the response. If we're not on site, that would be the responsibility of the event organizer holding the permit.
And then how do we verify that that's been done?
That would be a condition of the permit. So I guess on the back end, if we wanted to establish a fine, if that's not held through, we could certainly explore that.
Does anybody see any negatives to that?
In what regard?
Well, just something I'm not thinking of that, like I would assume they're making 10%. And so to have them there and take away business from our concession, just trying to process if there's anything that I would not have thought of.
What about all the other parks that we have that don't have concessions? Are we gonna do the 10% across the board, or is this only for Mulberry?
Well,
I think it's got to be all or one, all or nothing. Yeah.
But it sounds like that means it's only Mulberry because Lincoln Park isn't gonna have vendors in the park.
But they would be a part of the application. We could, the event's still occurring on park property.
So I guess I was trying to clarify that earlier when I was saying, even if we said we don't want any vendors, they have the right to be on the street.
Correct. But if the special event specifically lists park property, I feel like there's some ability for us to implement these rules. Maybe John has another opinion. We should probably ask him.
I mean, it would be cleaner, I think, just to charge the percentage if they're
On park property. Yeah, I would, it's much cleaner on park property. And if it's not, if it's on the street, that's not something that we can govern. And so I would add it to only park property.
My experience in fundraising and event planning with nonprofit world is that a lot of times those small percentages of profits that vendors offer are meant to be fundraising opportunities for the group that are hosting the event. And we are now cutting that off from local nonprofits that are using the parks. And I don't think that that makes us a good partner with our nonprofit community for what is really going to amount to not a lot of money.
Good point. Hamilton County, our neighbors are doing 10% regardless.
Do you think we have to treat everybody the same? So I don't think we can carve out nonprofits. Unfortunately, I think we have to treat all commercial activities the same. So
I understand. I'm just thinking that most of the people that are going to do the, use the park for their activity, their large scale event, are likely to be nonprofit entities, in my experience.
So make something up. So if you've got, the Catholic Church wants to come in and do a bazaar and they're having, something where they're trying to do it as a fundraiser. That's the kind of thing that you're seeing mostly.
Yeah, so the
I would have
trade-off
picked
then
an
is.
event that, or example that wasn't related to a church, because that's a whole other level of
But
confounding.
the trade-off is, right.
But yes, I mean, yeah.
They would just have to use their church property if they wanted to not give 10% to the parks. Right?
Yes.
I think that's the trade-off. And if an entity wants to come in and not do 10%, there's plenty of private event venues. My perspective on this is our parks should not be event venues. They should be open at all times to all people. And should not be allowed to be taken over by one entity or another. And so I,
But my understanding is regardless of the special event use, the parks are public property, so they're open regardless if there's an event there or not.
Correct.
Okay.
yeah, and we're not infringing on anybody's First Amendment right to assemble at all. This is just to prohibit what happens during events or special events and to be more aligned with where we need to go as a park and just spend $1 million on a concession stand. And that's top of mind for me.
A staff, right?
Yep, yep.
And then same thing with Lincoln Park, right? We bring food trucks in and ultimately it detracts from supporting Main Street businesses. So
Yeah.
either way you look at, there's impact, right? And I think as a board, it's our job to be fiscally responsible and make sure that we're bringing in as many dollars to the Parks Department and or saving as many as possible.
And I think it's healthy to have a conversation, right? We all represent different points of view. We've all heard different points of view from the community. And so that's why we're here and we can vote on it and we see if it sticks. If it sticks, great. If it doesn't, and we move on. So I'll, again, make a motion to amend 8 to add 10% revenue share off the top.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes with the amended version of number 8 to include 10%.
John, will you work on language to square up just, because what I would like to see is like a report after those events are done, right? Of what that 10% looked like from us and compare it to the vendors that were submitted versus what we received and just make sure that those check and balance. Maybe within 30 days or something.
All right, next motion to amend 6 to add stages to this to further clarify stages.
But to be clear, that this is a change, but you're saying, has our practice been to prohibit stages?
Sounds like it should have been.
Through the special event process, tents, there's a lot of opportunities awarded to that special permit for use of a location. Same with roads, that they close roads, they request vendors in the streets where they traditionally couldn't park. So modifications to the intended use are a part of the process for special events.
But the special event has to follow the town approved special event has to follow our rules, correct?
That is certainly what it'll read moving forward if it wasn't clear before in the policy.
Because what we're saying is previously, if it was a special event, it could get different rules, just like closing the street. Correct? But going forward, that would say for both. It would be the rule always, and then also for special permits.
I think there needs to be some clarification on what would be permitted with special events that otherwise would not be permitted outside of the special event.
How do we clarify that?
Amend Rule 6
yeah.
with a special event clause.
All right. I make a motion to amend 6 to include stages to that and also include that with special events. Yep. I'm making a motion to amend B6 to add stages and to provide clarity that that includes special events.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend 6 to include stages for special use and events. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think motion carries 4-3.
If I could just request administratively one more clarification, and that would be tents, both with special events and with sporting reservations. So I think we could capture both processes at once. When a special event application is submitted with vendor tents, the fire marshal does dictate the spacing of those, requiring both weights and appropriate fire blocks. So I think my request to this body would be clarification on permitting 10 by 10 tents as a component of a special event application or a sports field reservation, so long as they follow the guidance of the fire marshal.
Just for clarification, I think we really should treat them the same. I mean, we allow one for one. I don't see
Yeah.
how, unless there's a really good reason
Yeah.
that we would allow for the other.
Yeah, I make a motion for an amendment to allow 10 by 10 events for special events and for sporting events.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
If there are no other discussions or amendments, the final act would be consideration of approving the resolution with the amendments noted throughout this conversation.
Make a motion to approve the resolution with amendments noted throughout the conversation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to old business.
Moving on to old business, the 2026 fleet upgrades. I appreciate the board's dialogue concerning our fleet and the maintenance and care of that for our operations. It was apparent that there was a philosophical difference of how the department has been operating that program with the town as well, and the direction the board would like to see. Despite that philosophical difference, respectfully, there are operational needs today, which were budgeted for with the lease program. So my final request to the board would be to authorize the sale of two of our 2019 F-250s and utilize that equities against two leases for 2026 Dodge Ram trucks as specified in the agreements within the packet. Those are an operational need this year. Moving forward, if the board truly wishes that we divest from the enterprise program, we can discuss that further with them on buyout opportunities and build that into future budgets.
This is going from crew cab or from crew cab to quad cab, or what are we?
Regular to.
Regular to
Yep.
crew cab. Yeah. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And the final item of old business is resolution 6-05, shelter reservation policy update. Previously, there were some questions on the capacity of the shelter reservation policy. So I've included language to clarify the maximum use despite how many shelters are reserved would be 100 within the party. And also the final line of the program overview now reads, shelter reservations are intended for personal, family, and community gatherings by residents, local nonprofit organizations, and businesses. Fundraising or commercial use is prohibited unless expressly approved by the park board. So there would still be a mechanism should a group wish to have a fundraiser or utilize a shelter for commercial use, and that would come before this body on each instance. In these 5 years, we've had this program that has been exceptionally rare, but each time that has happened, that has come before the board with a request.
Any further discussion on the board? Do I have a motion?
Jared, what exactly is the new language? It's the last sentence of the second paragraph.
Correct. So shelter reservations are intended for personal, family, and community gatherings by residents, not local nonprofit organizations and businesses. Fundraising or commercial use is prohibited unless expressly approved by the board. And let me find where else that is stated in the policy. Item 6, eligibility and reservation criteria. The other adjustment was anticipated attendance may not exceed 100 guests per reservation period, even if multiple shelters are reserved during the same period. And then Section 7, prohibited and restricted uses. A shelter reservation does not authorize the operation of concessions or the sale, display, or distribution of goods, food, beverage, or services without prior park board approval and required permits. And then fundraising of any kind, including those conducted by or for local nonprofit organizations, require submission of a detailed proposal and advanced approval by staff and or the park board. Park board meets once per month. Applicants are responsible for allowing sufficient review time.
So would that violate any of the language we just approved?
This would provide an exception opportunity for the board to consider violating the amendment they just approved. Not violating, allowing an exception.
Well, and it's within a defined area, right? So it's within a shelter, so it's a structure, which allows it to be capped as well.
Why not?
My philosophy would be it's all or nothing. So we do it all in the parks or nothing in the park. So I would strike, I would amend the first two bullet points under prohibited or restricted uses to clarify that there's no transaction of commerce or fundraising. So to where there is no exception allowed. I think we've got to be all or nothing. I don't think we need to be managing one-offs with this.
Just for clarification, so we did allow commercial activities on park property with a 10% revenue split, right?
That's right. Sorry, I'm tired, John.
That's okay. No, that's okay. So would you like to make essentially the same amendment to this one?
Well, let's,
So that it'd be
before we do that,
congruent?
let me just understand what this is saying or what we're talking about. So we're saying that if you rent the shelter, it does not turn into a concession stand, right? That's in there. And then what it's also saying is
Without prior approval.
without prior approval.
So they
you
could, there
can't do
could be,
fundraising.
there could be an ask here to do that. And then that puts us in a position of having to approve and claiming favorites. And I think that puts us in a vulnerable position here.
Yeah, John, help us out there because fundraising seems different than,
Well, so if there are transactions, so if you're selling an item to raise funds, I mean, that is considered a commercial transaction, a commercial activity. So I agree. It's always a bit tricky when, you have an approval process. I would say as long as they meet whatever criteria the board sets for allowing a commercial activity within that space, for instance, insurance, like if they provide insurance coverage, then it's almost an automatic approval if you're going to allow it.
so tell me if this is possible, because I don't want to restrict fundraising from something small. But I also don't want there to be a concession stand in the shelter, right? And so, when we're talking about, somebody making bracelets to help, sick kids or something, that feels totally different. And so are you saying maybe we can just limit, like decide what that is to say we're going to allow Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, kids?
But we have to
That's a
take 10%
slippery
off the
slope.
top too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's tricky when you start
Yeah.
distinguishing between the different groups that are doing the commercial activities, whether it's a nonprofit purpose or a for-profit purpose.
So to be consistent, we would need to do 10% off the top of any transaction of commerce.
I think when I think of a shelter in a park, I think of birthday parties, family reunions, people reserving something like that so that they can go and gather with family and friends, not so they can go and set up a stand. And so I think because we have already allowed commercial activities, we have not prohibited commercial activities in the previous policy. I would like to say we've given people an avenue to do that if it's appropriate and whatever, but I think the shelters should be reserved for family activities and not to set up a temporary store or,
Yeah.
I mean, even a fundraiser. If you're going there to set up a sign and say, come here and donate money, I don't think it's necessary to rent a shelter out to do that. So I think if I'm thinking specifically about what do I want people to be able to rent the shelters for, not what do I want people to be able to do in the park. If I'm just talking about what I want people to be able to rent the shelters for, I want it to be reserved for family gatherings and birthday parties and other sorts of we're here to be together. We're not here to collect money, whether it's not for profit or for profit.
So would you put something there, no transaction of commerce in the shelters at all?
So per our last amendment, the only ability for somebody to have commerce on park property is through the special event application. So we would just strike that within the shelter reservation policy. And it would,
I think it's appropriate to say a shelter reservation does not authorize the operation of concession, fruit sale, display, blah, blah, blah. Period. It's clarifying what the rule is, so that people don't read this policy, get the idea that they can do that. So I think it's more just providing clarification. And then I would just add fundraisers to the top one. Shelter reservation does not authorize the operation of concessions or the sale, display, or distribution of goods, foods, beverages, or services, or fundraisers, period. Or some sort of list.
You want to make a
like that.
motion just to make it clean?
I move to make that modification that I just said. And I will say it again, if you want, but it should be in the minutes.
Is it better to just make it broad and say to restrict commerce? Or,
Well, if you look at that last sentence in the first section, it says fundraising or commercial use is prohibited unless expressly approved by the park board. You could just strike the second half of that sentence.
yeah, that makes sense.
And Jared, is there something else later in the policy? that you changed?
it was what was mentioned concerning section 7. So we just remove bullets 1 and 2.
I ask a question about the limit of 100 guests, no matter if they have 1 or 2. Like, what's the thought process there? Because I mean, we limit sizes based on fire code because we're enclosed in a room. But if it's an outdoor set shelter and I rent 2 of them and a shelter will hold 50 people or 175 and then I rent 2 of them, then I shouldn't have picked those numbers because now my math is not going to work. But I mean, why
cap it at 100?
why cap it at 100 regardless of how many shelters you rent?
That was just industry research back in 2020 when this was developed. That seemed to be a standard across many states.
And that's still the case beyond 2020? I mean, like, there's no update to that or anything?
I haven't looked, but to be honest, again, there's no qualifier for fire marshals or anything. It's an open air structure. People can leave from every direction. It's really, there's only 4 picnic tables traditionally in a shelter. That's only going to seat 16. So
Yeah.
when we have a party of 100, there's a lot of people standing around that structure in that immediate area.
I come from a very large extended family. We could far exceed 100 people.
Which I think would trigger a special event.
Yeah. No, we are special.
But we haven't had any pushback to that cap
Okay.
for shelter reservations in the 5 years of operating it.
And do you feel good about wordsmithing, making motion?
Yeah, I can say it again. So my motion is to erase the second bullet point under Roman numeral 7, prohibited and restricted uses, and modify bullet point number 1 to read: a shelter reservation does not authorize the operation of concessions or the sale, display, or distribution of goods, food, beverages, or services, or fundraisers of any kind, period.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-1.
That was the amendment that you voted on. So now you can vote on the policy as amended.
I move to approve the policy as amended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-1. Moving on, other board-related items. Anybody?
Yeah.
Claims?
Claims.
I'll throw one item on there if you're looking for content. Tomorrow, the community garden program opens up, and interested parties can reserve that through our MyRec system for their community garden plot.
Jared Carpenter opening, what are we thinking? Or is that to be, do we need a drum roll on that one, or you want to hold that close to the vest?
We'll hold that till the RSVs start coming out, but
Okay.
you might
You
have some
feeling
inside
good?
knowledge.
Do you feel good about it?
Feel great.
Awesome,
We're gonna land the plane.
awesome. Great to hear, man.
Any other discussion? I'll make a motion, take a motion to adjourn.
Nope.
No, you have to do the claims.
Motion to
No
approve the
claims.
claims.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Carries.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you
Doug,
all.
I have my own pen tonight.
Aye.